Hi there. This one's mainly to do with the male gaze, but also visuals in both films, Alien and Vertigo. Now, this is obviously for Eduqas film studies, and this is relating to the comparison question, which is usually surrounding auteur theory, but can pretty much be on any kind of micro elements of film. I'm going to mainly focus on the male gaze and Madeline, and then move into some of the visual techniques used in both Alien and Vertigo in order to present present ideas, present interpretations, and so on. Okay, so the use of the male gaze then. Now, if you are not familiar with Laura Mulvey's male gaze theory, the idea is that women become these passive objects, and instead they become erotic objects for both the observer, so somebody who is watching, and the characters in the film. And she attributes this to the heavily masculinized way that we see film. So obviously most directors are male, most directors are straight white males, and therefore when we are filming films like this, we tend to observe it through their lens. And Hitchcock is no different. Hitchcock was quite prolific for being very affectionate towards women, maybe a little too affectionate. Now, with Madeline, obviously she's heavily sexualized through the film. As much as you can sexualize a character during the Hays Code, she wears relatively low cut but still conservative dresses. But the key element is that she is ogled by Scotty. She is watched consistently. The use of voyeurism, being able to watch somebody, and in a way scopophilia, which is the idea of watching somebody without their knowledge and taking pleasure in it. Now, Scotty is our lens as we watch the film. We watch from his perspective. So when we watch Madeline, we watch her in a sexualized way. And the camera often emphasizes her curves and emphasizes her feminine figure to allow us as an audience to see her as a beautiful woman, which is what Hitchcock intended. Similarly to that, there's an article that I read in my class, which relates to the use of sexualization and male gaze in Hitchcock's films. If you would like to read further into that, please do pause the video and have a little read of the article just on the right here. This isn't the entire article, but it'll give you a good idea about the use of the male gaze. Okay, and there's a few key elements here. Men have always held the criterion of judging beauty, and sexual fantasies have always been an important part of the male gaze. The focus on the word male gaze is on the word gaze. When a man looks at a woman, his gaze follows instincts. Men's eyes tend to follow the chest, legs, and other parts, which is exactly what tends to happen in the film, because those elements are emphasized when it comes to Madeline. And it says here at the end, the idea of male supremacy has been firmly rooted in the film industry. So you've got a large number of male voyeur images are used to create Madeline. It's all about voyeurism and watching her and making her seem like something, mostly an object. Okay, so there are 4 different comparisons I'm going to go through when it comes to comparisons to Alien. And over time, sharing resources around, taking ideas from people and so on. A lot of these ideas may be from other people that aren't me. I'm not going to claim that I came up with these ideas. I'm not that smart. But all of these ideas have been taken from places, either articles or other things, or research papers and so on. So I'll go through them each individually. First of all, there's a static camera around Madeline. Hitchcock tended to rely quite heavily on static camera when filming women. He liked the woman to be able to tell the story with her beauty and her visuals rather than just talking about dialogue, as I mentioned in my last video. Allows the spectator to enjoy and appreciate her body in the 1950s male gaze. It's not a very comfortable topic, obviously, because it's sexualizing somebody. But in the same way, this was commonplace in the 1950s. It was commonplace for women to be involved in those situations. There are a lot of close-ups of Ripley, and wide-angle lenses are used to emphasize her practicality rather than her gender. So when we look at Alien in comparison to that, women are not really overtly sexualized. However, there is an argument to be made right at the very end of Alien when Ripley is undressing. You could argue that that's just a moment of vulnerability, that we're seeing her finally shed all of her gear of being somebody who is relatively gender neutral through the film, with the verisimilitude of her outfit, the truckers in space idea, and then revealing the fact that she's very feminine. Now, the other argument is that this is put in for the male gaze specifically, that the studio wanted this put in order to satisfy that younger male audience with some kind of sex appeal, hence the emphasis on showing Ripley's body and just observing her, especially from the angle that they choose, which is a much lower angle, emphasizing the rest of her feminine features. Now, that's an argument you can have in terms of whether or not the male gaze applies to Alien, but I think it's easy to agree that throughout the film, the use of those close-ups and wide-angled shots through corridors and so on just emphasize Ripley's practicality and, in a way, you could say masculinity in comparison to Madeline's femininity. So you've got then long shots and mid shots that sexualize Madeline's body. So often the outfits will be tight fitting, or they will reveal parts of her, they'll reveal a bit of skin and so on. Obviously, Hays Code permitting, so you weren't able to show everything, of course, because of the Hays Code. But then in Alien, there are long mid shots. In Alien, they frame Ripley in an aggressive and combative stance. So quite often you can see her here, using a flamethrower. She's sort of practical. She's working rather than being an object of affection. And she's not really sexualized in the film, as I said, until sort of the very end. So she becomes this action hero more so than Madeline, who is an object of lust. And also the visual opposition in props. So the use of a necklace for Madeline, it becomes a really important symbol in the film. But the necklace itself is very feminine. It draws attention to the neck and chest area, which is always exposed with Madeline because she is this sex object. But Ripley cuts a more masculine appearance because she's often seen with props such as guns and flamethrowers and so on. And even that extends to Aliens, the second film, where she's again takes on that role of being more masculine in appearance with the choice of props. And also there's a lot of visual differences in costumes and lighting around both characters. We talked about color and lighting last time when we talked about Madeline, but she's often very brightly lit. We can see a lot of her when she's on screen, but also, of course, there are elements of silhouettes, heavy emphasis on shadows when it comes to her, about her being a mystery. In Alien, Ripley is often lit with strobe lighting, especially when the ship is going down at the end. Obviously, the emphasis on shadow is more to do with the genre than it is anything else, but she's not lit in a flattering manner. She's not meant to be because she's at work. She's doing a job. Yeah. And then I got my class to do a little bit of Hitchcock research after that, which links to it. So overall, some of these visual differences are really important to talk about when you're looking at Alien and Vertigo. As I said, these four elements are the important ones. But hopefully this has been very useful for you, a little bit shorter than the last one, but it's important to understand the ideas of the male gaze and how they may apply to Vertigo and Alien. Thank you very much.